Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom.
In our top story, the USS Abraham Lincoln has been routed to the Middle East as American and regional militaries continue planning a decisive strike on the radical Islamic Republic. This Nimitz-class aircraft carrier is equipped with hundreds of launchers capable of striking targets deep inside Iran with unprecedented force. It is accompanied by several destroyers and missile ships, and its deployment from the South China Sea sends a powerful message to the fanatic leaders of Iran. Multiple sources reported that U.S. bombers landed at the Diego Garcia base in the central Indian Ocean last week. This base has long runways that can accommodate heavy bomber takeoff for long-range strikes across the Middle East.
U.S. President Donald Trump has invited dozens of world leaders to join his Board of Peace. Presidential invitations were sent to more than 60 leaders worldwide. Participants wishing to become permanent members of the board after an initial 3-year term will be required to pledge $1 billion. The White House announced that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Tony Blair will be among the founding members of the BOP. Trump has chosen a broad list of potential Board of Peace members, including countries that Israel has previously vowed not to work with. Rebekah has more on that.
Yes, Yochanan, Israeli leaders have expressed shock and outrage over the selection of several hostile nations chosen to sit on President Trump's Board of Peace. The leaders of Pakistan, Qatar, China, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, and Russia all announced receiving invitations to serve on the panel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement saying that the board's makeup was not coordinated with Israel and contradicts its policy. From the Knesset plenum, Netanyahu vowed that Qatari and Turkish forces would not set foot in Gaza.
Israeli security officials are concerned that Hamas is using the current ceasefire to rebuild its terrorist army and weapons arsenal. The radical Islamic group refuses to disarm and relinquish control of Gaza, even as President Trump prepares to enter Phase 2 of his plan for the Gaza Strip. According to Israeli media reports, several warnings have been issued over moves by Hamas to rearm.
Anti-regime activists have hacked Iranian state TV and aired a speech by Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, who is seen by many as the leader of the resistance. In his address, the exiled son of the late Shah called on the brave protesters to continue their fight against the fanatic Islamic regime. Iran International reported that Pahlavi's message included calls for members of Iran's military and armed forces to defect and side with the resistance. The Iranian people have had enough of the tyrants of Tehran. A new poll reflects that 92% of Iranians hate the regime. This secret survey was commissioned by the Iranian president and was intended to remain confidential, but Iran International boldly reported on the findings.
Nasria Sfur, the president-elect of Honduras, was in Jerusalem, forging what he calls a new era in bilateral relations with the Jewish state. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed Sfur to the ancient and modern city of Jerusalem. Netanyahu said Israel and Honduras are reshaping their relations in line with the traditional bonds of friendship. He added that Israel looks forward to future innovation and cooperation with the people of Honduras.
The Israel Defense Forces have launched a program to integrate skilled immigrants into military reserve duty. The program, entitled Olim A1 Bet, aims to fast-track the enlistment process and condense the basic training program for new immigrants wishing to serve. Once they complete basic training, the new Olim will be assigned to active reserve units. The IDF confirmed that it launched this new program in response to operational needs and a growing demand among immigrants who were previously ineligible to enlist through standard tracks.
Israel has demolished the headquarters of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency in Jerusalem and cut the power and water to several other UNRWA buildings. Israeli Minister of Energy and Infrastructure Eli Cohen directed the Israel Electric Corporation and Jerusalem's water utility to halt service to UNRWA facilities, citing the UN organization's ties to terror. Cohen said UNRWA has effectively operated as an arm of Hamas. Its personnel took part in the October 7th massacre and routinely incite against the State of Israel.
Radical Islamic terrorists have used sophisticated weapons to attack several churches in Nigeria. 2 Christian houses of worship were ambushed during Sunday services, and hundreds of Christians were taken hostage. One senior church leader said that 160 people were taken from his congregation alone. Christians in the African nation continue to be targeted by Muslim militias that abduct and forcefully convert the youth. Boys are trained as child soldiers, and the girls become adolescent brides. In 2025, Open Doors named Nigeria as the epicenter for the global killing of Christians. Its watch list noted that Christians in the country are disproportionately targeted and that 1 in 5 African Christians have faced high levels of persecution.
The U.S. State Department is reportedly considering offering asylum to British Jews amid rising anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom. In an exclusive interview with the Telegraph news agency, President Trump's lawyer, Robert Garrison, confirmed that he had been in talks with the State Department about providing sanctuary for Jews fleeing anti-Semitism. Garrison said the violent attacks against Jews in England, coupled with the changing demographic in the country, make it hard to believe that there is a future for Jews in the UK.
A network of Iranian doctors has published a report on the casualties of the Islamic Republic's brutal crackdown on recent anti-regime protests. The physicians claim that at least 16,500 people were murdered in Iran, most of them under the age of 30, including pregnant women and children. The report estimates that more than 330,000 people were wounded by Iranian forces. The doctors say that thousands of people have lost their sight after security forces fired shotgun pellets into the crowds. One doctor told the Sunday Times that no fewer than 8,000 Iranians have been blinded by the regime.
The Israeli Air Force has announced that its fleet of fighter jets has grown after receiving 3 new F-35 aircraft. Israel bought a total of 50 F-35s from American defense giant Lockheed Martin. The last 2 planes of this agreement will be delivered later this year. In 2023, Israel signed another deal with Lockheed Martin for 25 additional state-of-the-art fighter jets that will bring the total number to 75.
Individuals involved in Kamala Harris's failed presidential campaign reportedly asked Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro if he was a double agent for Israel. This question of Shapiro's loyalty was raised as Harris's team vetted him for the position of vice president. Shapiro claims that Harris's team asked him extensively about Israel, leaving him wondering whether these questions were being posed just to him, the only Jewish candidate, or if everyone else was being grilled about Israel in this way.
The Jewish state's only ski resort, located on Mount Hermon, has officially opened to the public. Mount Hermon is located in northern Israel along the Syrian border. It was shuttered during the war with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Despite continued conflict with the Syrian regime over the status of the border region, Israel deemed it safe to open the slopes to the public. Well, of course, Israelis welcome the news and have flocked to the north. Hotels, hostels, and zimmers in the area report that they are completely sold out. Recent winter storms brought 16 inches of snow to the lower level of the mountain and 28 inches at the upper level. The IDF Elite Alpinist Unit recently finished training at the site, further increasing public safety for visitors.
The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has released a scathing response to a group of patriarchs that condemned Christian Zionism. Last week, an organization of major patriarchs and heads of churches from the Roman Catholic, Eastern Catholic, and Orthodox branches ruled that Christian Zionism is a damaging ideology. They released a statement saying that Christian Zionists mislead the public, sow confusion, and harm the unity of our flock. ICEJ responded, saying, as Christians, we adhere to a Zionism that is purely biblical in origin, belief, scope, and practice, reflecting our sincere faith convictions and not shifting political objectives. The promised restoration of Israel in modern times enjoys ample biblical credentials in both the New and Old Testaments. The Jewish return to the land of Israel reflects and affirms the faithful nature and character of God to always keep his sworn covenant promises, thereby strengthening the Christian faith rather than damaging or undermining it.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. We're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Itamar Marcus. He's the director of Palestinian Media Watch. Itamar, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Tell our viewers a little about what is Palestinian Media Watch.
The world only knows what the Palestinians tell them directly in meetings. We wanted the world to know what they're saying to their own people, what they're saying in Arabic, what they're doing in Arabic, their activities, their education. This is the real Palestinian Authority, and we present this material to parliaments around the world, to governments, so they'll know what's really going on in the Palestinian Authority.
It seems like a really simple trick. They say things in English that are nice, and then when they speak in Arabic, they say what they really believe. Why are people falling for it?
That's what we've been telling people the longest time. And the truth of the matter is that we've already impacted on most of the world and most of the governments. They turn to us regularly, what's really going on. I'll just give you a recent example. There was a claim that Mahmoud Abbas had actually condemned what happened on October 7th. And we released the exact transcripts of his interviews on his own television. He didn't condemn what happened on October 7th. He actually glorified what happened on October 7th. He talked about how it showed the Israeli entity that they're not invincible and it killed so many people. And then he said, and these were his words, but no matter what Hamas's, no matter what the important goals that Hamas had, it wasn't worth it because of the destruction it caused in Gaza.
Yeah, we report on this on Israel Now News. He actually said it was one of the most glorious days in Palestinian history. So it's something that is readily available. Why do the Western countries turn a blind eye? Why do they talk about Mahmoud Abbas, who's a terrorist, who did a doctorate on Holocaust denial, as a partner for peace?
The world is desperate to impose a Palestinian entity in the heartland of Israel. Is it because of anti-Semitism? Is it because they're jealous that Israel is doing so well in the world? I don't know what it is, but it's almost irrational at this point. We have exposed so much material about the Palestinian Authority. Their security services. We did a full report showing not only are the security services completely involved in terror, but the leadership of the security services rewards extra the families that were involved in terror and got into prison. And they glorify and they honor them. And now the world is talking about putting the Palestinian security services to rule Gaza. It's irrational. And is it because they're desperate for a peace in the region, or is it desperate to weaken Israel?
You did a great report about the pay for slay. I think this has happened half a dozen times in the last year where Mahmoud Abbas has come out and say, we don't do pay for slay anymore. And then our foreign ministry has to be like, no, they do pay for slay, and they're paying people to kill Jews and Christians. What is the essence of the report?
What we're doing is we're following what's really happening in the Palestinian world, and we're literally, we have people who are informing us what's going on. So Abbas comes on and he announces we've ended pay for slay, and then we know exactly how much money was given to the families and that they're still getting it. So we can report precise documentation without using the names of the people who are informing us. We know exactly what they're giving out.
It's really shocking that only America really calls out the PA on these things. They ban them from having a mission in America. They don't give money to them because of the Pay for Slay, the Taylor Force Act that was passed that prevents America from giving money. Why are there not other Western countries saying, hey, this is a terrorist organization trying to destroy the only free democracy in the Middle East. We need to stop it.
Part of the problem is that governments change. There were numerous times where literally within weeks after PMW's presentations, different parliaments cut off all funding. I spoke in Netherlands, in the parliament in The Hague. And 2 weeks later, their parliament voted 96-54 to cut off funding to the PA. I spoke to Australian MPs, and they also 3 weeks later froze and eventually cut off all funding to the PA. And this has happened in other countries as well. what happens is the government switch. And you literally, for the work that we do, we then have to go and reestablish new ties with all the new governments all over again, constantly reminding them. Because everyone comes in and they'd say, okay, we're starting from ground zero. Oh, you're not funding the PA? Let's fund them. So this is our challenge. This is our challenge to make the world understand constantly what the PA is. Every new government, making them understand that if you support the Palestinian Authority, you are supporting a terror organization.
You do a lot of work on the education side of things, the textbooks of how it's inciting against violence, the music videos, the culture, the arenas named after terrorists, the streets named after terrorists. Why is this so impactful in Palestinian society?
The Palestinian Authority has named, for example, 31 schools after terrorist murderers. 5 of those schools are named after Dalal Mughrabi. She led a bus hijacking in which 37 people were killed, 12 of them children. Now, until October 7th, that was the worst, the most lethal attack in Israel's history. And because of that, the PA has named 5 schools after her. Now, we've seen interviews with children on TV where PA TV goes into the schools, they speak to the children, and they ask them, what does it mean for you to be in the Dalal Mughrabi school? Oh, she's our hero. We learn about her. We want her to be a role model. I want to do things like she did. And all the kids, all they do is talk about it. And then they interview the school principal who says the same thing, that we want to teach these kids to see her as a role model. Just a few weeks ago, the Fatah Universities, the Shabiba organization of the Fatah Universities, that's the youth, that's the Fatah older youth. It's not the kids, it's the university age. They gave out free books to all the university students. Who was on the cover? Picture of Yasser Arafat next to the same Dalal Mughrabi.
Itamar, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
What I want everyone to know is that the Palestinian Authority is a terror-supporting organization, or if it's not a terror organization itself, everyone, to your countries, let your governments, let your leadership, let your members of parliament know that there is no justification in trying to impose the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. There's no justification for funding them. If you want us to fund a terror organization, you can fund the PA. Otherwise, you have to ostracize them just the same way as you're ostracizing Hamas.
Thank you, Itamar, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now the truth from Zion.
Iran, under its current fanatical Islamic regime, poses a growing threat to the West. Since its founding in 1979, the hardline Shiite Islamic Republic has treated the West as ideological adversaries. Its slogans call for death to America. Its media pushes conspiracy theories about the West culture, economy, and military. Its highest leaders see freedom itself as a danger to their rule. Iran's most powerful weapon is its proxy network. Tehran funds and arms groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, radical militias in Iraq and Syria, and Hamas in Gaza. It includes rockets, drones, training, money, and intelligence. These groups are directed and sustained by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which answers to the supreme leader. On October 7, 2023, the world witnessed the impact of that hateful intent. Hamas launched a surprise massacre of civilians in southern Israel, killing, burning, raping, and kidnapping. Demonic behavior not seen since the Holocaust. It was a calculated, coordinated assault, made possible by years of Iranian funding and support. It was designed to derail normalization efforts between Israel and its neighbors. The Ayatollah hosted Hamas leaders in Tehran days later and promised continued support. Hezbollah increased attacks from the north, while the Houthis attacked commercial shipping in the Red Sea and launched rockets at Israel. Each group claimed independence, but clearly operated under the Iranian umbrella. The danger did not end at Israel's borders. Iran's proxies called for uprisings in Western capitals. Demonstrations in support of Hamas took place in London, Paris, Berlin, New York, and Toronto. Iranian-linked media and social accounts amplified anti-Israel slogans and conspiracy theories, trying to inflame tensions and turn public opinion against the Jewish state. Iranian intelligence has long used diplomatic cover to plan assassinations and gather surveillance on Jewish and Israeli targets in Europe. In 2018, Iranian operatives plotted to bomb a conference in Paris, attended by dissidents and European lawmakers. European agencies have since warned of Iranian plots against Jewish schools, synagogues, and community leaders. In the United States, Iran has stepped up cyber operations, hacking infrastructure, targeting voter databases, and spreading propaganda. Its hackers have breached healthcare systems, local governments, and critical industries. Their goal is to break trust, spread fear, and turn allies against each other. In 2022, the Justice Department charged members of the IRGC in a plan to assassinate former National Security Advisor John Bolton. In 2023, authorities uncovered another Iranian-linked plan to target Iranian-American activists. The regime wants critics to feel vulnerable, no matter where they live. Iran also spends heavily on foreign language media to shift the cultural narrative. Its channels convey anti-Israel messages, spread misinformation about U.S. policy, and blur the lines between peaceful protest and incitement. Iran launders its ideology in activist circles through groups hostile to Israel's existence, pushing for academic boycotts, organizing anti-Zionist events, and spreading pro-regime talking points. Economically, Iran uses shadow fleets, barter deals, and cryptocurrency to bypass sanctions. The money does not go to help the Iranian people. It fuels terror campaigns, drone factories, and enrichment facilities. What makes all of this more dangerous is the regime's ideology. The brutal Islamic Republic does not want stability. It sees diplomacy as a tactic, not a goal. It calls for Israel's destruction and seeks to erode American influence in every region. Iran must be treated not as a misunderstood neighbor, but for what it is, a hostile regime attacking the West by proxy, by propaganda, and by force.
The Iranian regime has been working around the clock to destroy the West. Their goal is to bring down Western values and build an Islamist caliphate.
For Israel, the threat is existential, but it is not Israel's burden alone. The regime behind the Hamas massacre on October 7th is the same regime that also fuels chaos across Europe, infiltrates campuses in America, and fans the flames of anti-Semitism and division everywhere it can. The free world cannot wait for the next attack. It must act with unity and resolve before Iran's shadow war becomes something far more dangerous. From Jerusalem, this is the truth from Zion. Up next, shining light from Israel.
The story of David and Goliath is one that has fired the imaginations of billions of people around the world. And while reading the story in the Bible is riveting, it remains just that, a story. To gain a better understanding of what happened, you actually have to come to where the events took place. And that's what brings us here today, to Tel Azekah. These trail markers aren't just here to help us get to the top of the mountain. They're here to help us immerse ourselves into the biblical narrative. Each one is engraved with a single verse. As we walk by, they take us deeper and deeper into the drama that unfolded here thousands of years ago. This is part of an ongoing archaeological excavation of the ancient city of Azekah, which was one of the most important fortified cities in the late First Temple period. Archaeologists have already found remnants of a city wall as well as a fortress, which helps us understand what we've already learned from other archaeological finds in nearby Lachish, that Azekah wasn't some small town hamlet. Rather, it was a strategically important city that was fortified against enemy attacks. as we're climbing up, we're already getting these beautiful views behind me. We're looking towards the west, which is the land of the Philistines. And it was from that direction that the Philistine forces were coming and encroaching on Israelite territory. Between us and the next mountain is an area called Ephes Damim, which is a red line past which King Saul would never allow the Philistines to pass. I am just in awe of the beauty of this view, as well as the historical weight that it carries with it. These markers are a little bit bigger because they also serve as benches where we can sit and listen to the climax of the story. From here, we have a beautiful view of the valley where there was supposed to be a battle between the Israelites and the Philistines, but it ended up being a one-on-one showdown between David and Goliath. Let's go have a look. Behind me is the Valley of Elah. Valleys like this were used for agriculture in the biblical period, but sometimes they were also used for battles. And that's exactly what was supposed to happen between the Israelite forces and the Philistine forces. But the Philistines had their secret weapon, Goliath, a giant who was anywhere between 9 and 15 feet tall, depending on how you measure a cubit. He would come out into the valley issuing a challenge, but no one was brave enough to take up the call. Until David, who wasn't even in the army at the time, and he heard Goliath's challenge. And it made David furious. And he went down into the valley and he gathered up 5 smooth stones and faced the giant without any armor. Goliath, furious, started to run at David, at which point David took out a stone, put it into his sling, and threw it at the giant's head. Goliath fell face down. David came, took his sword, and cut Goliath's head off with his own sword. At that point, the Philistine forces were so afraid of what they had seen that they fled all the way back to their territory. Today, the valley is being used for agriculture once again, just as it was thousands of years ago. What's even more remarkable are the communities that are behind us, housing thousands and thousands of Jews returning to their biblical homeland. The story of Tel Azekah, while famous, is just one story here in the Elah Valley. There are dozens of other stories to be heard in this region of the Holy Land, not to mention everywhere else in the country. I'm going to go and explore some of those places to connect to my biblical heritage. We would love it if you would come and explore with us.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.